But Trump's sitting there going like, look what happens when I squeeze their balls a little bit. I can get stuff out of them, right? So I'm going to look, I just squeezed everybody's balls and all of a sudden our borders are secure. So one of Trump's comments was that Canada isn't very nice and we don't let their banks in, which was kind of disproven because there are some American banks here. But regardless, there should be a JP Morgan Chase beside every TD Canada Trust, right? Or whatever the hell it's called now. There should be a Citibank on every corner where there's a BMO, right? Like, do they have better products than us in the States because there's way more competition there? And should we let those fuckers in here?
Well, I mean, I actually had Andrew Spence on my channel a few weeks ago who wrote a book about the Canadian banks and how they really bilk us for the fees because we don't have much competition. And when they try to go, when reform comes up, when we try to get in a new bank, our banks go to the regulators and say, no, you don't want 2008 to happen again.
Yeah.
So let's just keep it as is. And the
Mhm.
regulators prefer stability over any potential problems like '08. So they say, okay, and then nothing ever really changes.
When you
And
say
that's
stability, do you mean bribes?
no stability as in no meltdowns, right? No
Mm.
loosening of the financial conditions. So, and Spence makes the point that it's not binary. You could have something in the middle. You can let competition in without making it the Wild West like it was pre global financial crisis.
Yeah.
So, but the
So
banks
even if the
kind of
banks were
use it.
here, they'd be doing the same thing the Canadian banks are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be like the Wild West, but the banks use the GFC as a means of scaring the regulators.
And even though we had HSBC here, eventually the big guys just crushed them and bought them out. So it's like I don't think competition's gonna fly here, no matter what, right? Like I think either A, they keep them out, or B, they'll find a way to make sure that there's no. It's very anti-competitive. I find Canada's very anti-competitive in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Cell
they don't
phone
want to.
Every way.
plans,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like everything is crazy. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about the deal that is struck for the tariff delay?
Well, I want to know what the next 30 days are going to cost us, right?
Right. What's behind
So,
that?
how long does this go? Is there going to be a grand bargain? Because the wording of the language was that, okay, we'll do everything that we said. We already said we were going to do it. We just agreed
Yeah.
to do it and added a fentanyl czar. And then the wording of the language was now we can come up with a grand economic deal. That's what Trump wrote on Truth Social. But I don't see any, there isn't a whole lot of conversations going back and forth between us and the US. We're working on interprovincial barriers. It seems like we're more worried about the tariffs coming in and how we're gonna deal with the fallout than any actual high level negotiation. I'm not really seeing any of that. So is this
Isn't it?
all a facade? Is this even going to happen? I just
Yeah, most
who
likely,
knows?
most likely. But the benefit, what
You
you
think
just
it's
said, there's
likely?
What's most likely?
most likely it's a facade. Most likely it's all BS. Think about how many of Trump's friends who have his ears are going to be affected by those tariffs, and they're going to be like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, we need like this is very important to our business, and we can't just be ruining the relationship with our biggest trading partner."
Yeah.
Um, but
But
sorry, I
Trump's
lost my.
sitting there going like, look what happens when I squeeze their balls a little bit. I can get stuff out of them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to look, I just squeezed everybody's balls and all of a sudden our borders are secure or supposed to
Mhm.
be. I mean, let's be realistic. You add 10,000 people to both sides of the country with helicopters and drones and all this other bullshit that
But
they're talking about.
forget all that because the U.S. Canada deal that we've had in place already is reasonable, and I don't think it's going to change much or needs to change much. Maybe we gotta please Emperor Trump a little bit to be able to get
Yeah.
him to back off us a little bit and just make it seem like he won.
Yeah.
Please his ego. But don't you think, Mark, that all the benefits to the threat of tariffs are going to be hugely beneficial to Canadian companies? Like, don't you think that more interprovincial cooperation and companies starting to source customers and what's it called, suppliers from other countries is a good thing?
I think it's great. Any move towards diversification is excellent. That'll help us. Any barriers we can, tear down interprovincially, that'll help us. But what's not going to help us is this uncertainty, right? There's already manufacturers that not making orders. There's companies not making investments because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump can kill the economy without even landing a tariff. He can do it just by this uncertainty.
For
So
sure.
that's where I kind of wonder, when does this end? Is this
30
gonna,
days.
is this the next 40, is this the next 4 years, every 30 days? Or are we going to have some sort of something settled and we can all get back to business?
I think that's the tariff crisis. Ordeal where we worried about the trigger rate crisis, we worried about the renewal crisis, we worried about the deferral crisis. Now it's the tariff crisis, and they all turned out to be fake news. It all turned out to be just more fear than anything else. So my belief, and that's the only reason I'm saying that, is because every other crisis that we've all been worried about never ended up actually materializing into really that much. So I believe the tariff crisis will be the same thing. People will be worried about it, but I think after 30 days, there'll be calmer waters when people see, okay, this isn't really what we thought it would be.
Are you looking for the best merch store on the planet? Well, we got the shit for you. Coming in at low prices where we barely make any money off of whatsoever, you can get the greatest real estate merchandise on this platform. Just look at this very flamboyant man putting on this great stuff. He looks great, he's dancing great, and boy does he look sexy in that merchandise. I tell you, buy this for anybody, you buy this for yourself. You will be not only repping the greatest Canadian real estate podcast in this world, but you will also be looking hella good doing it.